Hare Krishna. So, welcome to part 4 of this module, which is a topic on how to know the divine. Now, in our earlier sections, we have been seeing how that we have said that the supreme divine, is all knowing, all powerful, all merciful, is the supreme CEO, controller, enjoyer, owner of everything. Right? So, question then comes, how to know this divine? How do we understand this divine? Because there's no question of loving and serving and surrendering and actually attaining that divine if we do not understand or we do not know about the divine. So we're going to see how can we understand the divine. Now before that, the Vedic philosophy says that in this material body that we have, there are 4 defects. The first is that we have imperfect senses. We all know the eyes, our vision, has a certain limit, a certain bandwidth, a certain range that we can see. We can't see ultraviolet light, we can't see so on and so forth out of that bandwidth. Similarly with our hearing as well, there's a limitation. So therefore the Vedic Shastras or the yoga philosophy says that first is we have imperfect senses. The senses are not complete. Right? There are certain range of sounds we can't hear, certain megahertz, certain hertz of sound frequency which we can't hear. An example, if someone blows on a dog's whistle, the dogs can hear it, we can't, because our senses are not perfect to perceive everything. And therefore, if our senses ourselves are not perfect, how are we going to understand and perceive God? So the first fault or the first defect that we have is that we have imperfect senses. Second is because having imperfect senses, there is a tendency to commit mistakes. We see a lot of this all the time. For example, if a person is suddenly hearing the kettle in the stove, on the stove, it's boiling, and the kettle goes beep, and someone may mistaken it thinking for a steam engine, a train that is passing by, a locomotive. So the sound is very similar. So like that we tend to do mistakes. So in this way, we see that because we have imperfect senses, there's a high tendency to make mistakes. Sometimes if you eat something, for example, if you eat something extremely sweet, like a bagel or a donut, and then you drink your cup of coffee or tea, and you're going to feel like, oh, it tastes so bland. I think I need to put more sugar. And that's a mistake, because actually it has sugar, but our senses get fooled. So because the senses are imperfect, there's a tendency to commit mistake. That's the second defect. The third defect is in committing mistakes, we also have a tendency to be illusioned. The senses get cheated. We all get cheated by optical illusions. Put a pencil in water, it looks as if it's bent. So imperfect senses, there's a tendency to become illusioned. Because of that, we are just to cover up our mistake, just to, hide the fact that we don't know, we can't understand, we fake something. Or we may cheat, we may lie, we may speculate just to cover it. Oh, it must be like this, it should be like that. An interesting fact actually, when we probably we discuss in the next module when we talk about soul, is that, for example, science today has tried for space exploration. So they have sent things here and there looking for life on other planets. And they have come back and said that, well, the whole world, the whole universe is dead. Earth is the only place filled with living beings. And out of it, the human race is superior. Seems very egoistic. But the Vedic Shastras, especially Bhagavad Gita, it's written that the nature of the living spirit soul is sarvagataha. It is everywhere. Even on Mars, even on Earth, even on the moon, even in the sun. But in a different body. So the cheating propensity that comes in man, if I can't understand it, it must be like that. If we look earlier into science, much earlier into biology, people used to think that this brain was a large cooling organ for the blood. Blood would go up, get cooled and come down. In the early days, there's no function of it. And people would boldly declare that this is what it is. So there's a lot of cheating involved. So because we have imperfect senses, because there's a high tendency to become illusioned, because we have the fact that the senses get cheated and we have a cheating propensity, these 4 defects, we cannot understand God per se. So question comes then, how can we know that divine? How can we know that supreme? The Vedic Shastras say that look towards the Vedas. Now what are these Vedas? These Vedas, Veda means wisdom. In Sanskrit, Veda means not a book of knowledge, but an entire library of knowledge. So a Veda is not just limited to a single book, but it's actually wisdom per se. Logic is, you can't have the whole knowledge of entire creation since time immemorial in one book. So in the yogic tradition, there are many books. Just like when you go to a library, there are unlimited number of titles and they all contain knowledge. So similarly, the Vedas as well have unlimited number of books. Now, if you're a science student, you will look for the books which are pertaining to your subject. So similarly, in the Vedas, if a person is a seeker looking for something, you find that title or topic or book which actually is relating to what you're searching for. So the Vedas have all kinds of knowledge. Now these Vedas are actually compared to a map. What does a map help us do? A map helps us to guide through life. So when you buy anything, any sort of machinery or any sort of gadget, they always comes with this instruction manual, a small book, which will actually explain how we can use these gadgets properly. So similarly, this body is a machine, this life that we're living through. And along with this machine, a manual has also been given, and that is the scriptures or the Vedas. So these Vedas are like a map to guide us. It's like a manual where to take us through life, to go through life, to cross through life, to reach the success of life. So like a map, like a manual. It is also like a medicine. Why the Vedas are compared to a medicine? Because medicine helps you to get better. Similarly, all of us are in this world confused and in delusion and in our own delirium, and we do not know what is going on. We are trying to find happiness. But the Vedas, the Vedic scriptures actually gives us the medicine to improve from our diseased condition. So we are all struggling with our physical, emotional, mental difficulties, and the Vedas have given the medicine, the solution, how to actually rise above our physical ailments, our mental ailments, our emotional ailments, and therefore it is compared to a medicine. So the Vedas are compared to a map to give us direction in life. They are compared to a manual to actually tell us how to use this life perfectly, and they are compared to a medicine on how to solve the ailments or the difficulties in life. Now, these Vedas are said to be spoken by the Supreme Himself, because who can give such perfect knowledge in totality? So these Vedas have many different kinds of proofs, and they have mentioned things like, for example, they have spoken about great kings like Chanakya and Ashoka, great personalities. They have even spoken about Jesus Christ and Muhammad. So the Vedas have given a lot of predictions, and they have spoken many axiomatic truths as well. Axiomatic truths are those truths which, well, if you want to go ahead and prove it, it's going to take a long time. But if you believe in it, you can move forward. Like when we study in school, for example, negative numbers. Negative numbers is an axiomatic truth. In reality, they don't exist, but you have to accept it, else you can't progress in math. So similarly, the Vedas have spoken many axiomatic truths. For example, one example, that the stool or the waste of any animal, even humans, are contaminating, stinky, and not good. But the dung of the cow dung, is actually pure. And it's not till recent years that actually some scientists have actually studied it and found that it has antiseptic, antibacterial properties. So in this way, a lot of the axiomatic truths which are mentioned in the Shastras, the scriptures, the Vedas, are now at a later stage proven. The Vedas talk about embryology, what happens in the womb of the mother. The Vedas now talk about life on other planets, which probably after some hundreds and thousands of years, probably they will prove it. The Vedas also talk about how plants have life. So people are a little confused. Is plants living? They're living, but do they have life like us? So the Vedas speak about how plants have life. The Vedas mention how the earth is round, Bhugol. There's 7 continents, Saptadweep. So there are planetary systems, like we have the sun, the moon. These are all mentioned in the Vedic Shastras. So the Vedas are the source for us to actually gain knowledge about that divine. Hearing all this, someone may ask, putting faith in a book, putting faith in some scriptures, isn't that little blind faith? Well, faith is required in every walk of life. For example, if you take a public bus or you sit in any public transportation, how many of us actually go up to the driver and ask, are you sober? Do you actually have a license? When we take a flight, how many of us actually ask the pilot that, you had good enough rest? We have a trust, we have a faith. Similarly, if you go to the barber or the hair salon, for guys who get a shave, here is the barber putting a blade to your neck, shaving you. You have the faith and trust that this guy is not insane, that he's not going to slit my throat. So if we think about it, we put faith in a lot of things in this world. But when it comes to scriptures and spirituality, we kind of question, which is not wrong. We should. So therefore, faith, if you want to trust something, if you want to know if it works, the taste of the pudding is in the eating. You have to eat it to actually understand. So similarly, the Vedas as well, we invite everyone to come and question and ask and look at it. So far the Vedas has spoken about a length of history in all these different varieties of books, from creation, from origin, for how things works, from embryology, from psychology, from actually progression and evolution of species and life on different worlds, and how this world is functioning in so many different aspects the Vedas have spoken. So therefore, the great way, the good way to actually know the Supreme, to know the Divine, is by looking at the scriptures which are given by that Divine. If I want to know you, as a person, I can ask every other Tom, Dick and Harry about you. Or I can actually sit with you and speak to you. And when I hear from you, about you, that is the best source of knowledge, instead of hearing from others. So similarly, the Vedas are that which is spoken by the Supreme, which is given by the Lord. And therefore, when we read it, we actually can understand better about that Supreme. Hare Krishna.